Soup. Food or drink? There seems to be a debate on the issue. It was a fine spring day in the township of Ponyville. Was being the operative word. For, while the sun shone brightly, the flowers smelled delightfully, and the birdsong was extraordinary. Twilight Sparkle from her bedroom window couldn't help but notice the angry mobs forming outside of the Castle of Friendship. Mobs. Plural.
Starlight!
The Princess of Friendship cried out in weary exasperation.
If you had something to do with this, I'm in the library,
came the voice of her protege and newfound friend. Twilight followed the sound of it to her castle's library, where Starlight Glimmer, newly reformed, sat reading a spell tome while her newfound friend, and perhaps not quite as reformed friends Trixie Lulamoon, seemed content to build a house of cards on one of the reading tables. Well, if houses of cards were built out of crackers covered in peanut butter. Twilight's eyes narrowed at the display, her mind already composing a litany of complaints against such blatant disregard for the no food or drink rules of the library. She was, ironically given that she was in a library, going to throw the book at Trixie when she remembered there was a much more pressing concern.
Starlight?
She approached her student warily.
Is there a reason why I have 2 angry mobs assembling outside of my castle?
Trixie finished her second row of peanut butter crackers. Then she began building the third row, trusting in the stickiness of peanut butter, as much as her deft hooves could, to hold the structure. Once the delicate work was past, she snorted.
Don't look at me, Sparkle. I haven't done a show in weeks. Funny how the words angry mob immediately makes you think that you're involved somehow.
Starlight smirked, without looking over from her reading. However, she did half turn to look at her teacher and remarked,
But no, I had nothing to do with this one either. I'm sure it's some simple misunderstanding that could be easily cleared up by the Princess of Friendship, though.
Twilight sighed and rolled her eyes.
Yeah,
she said as she marched out towards the large double doors.
I'll get it.
She idly wondered why things like this always seemed to happen on a Saturday. Nightmare Moon, her brother's wedding, Tirek, every time. Like clockwork. The door slid open at the mere touch of her magic, allowing the light of day to enter her castle, unfiltered. The same was true for the screaming, shouting, and utter chaos unfolding on her front lawn. There were 2 huge camps of ponies facing one another. There were waving signs, but a lot of those were leftovers from the last time that Ponyville had hosted such a thing, and Twilight didn't think that it had been long enough for another anti-Starlight demonstration to break out. Despite the waves of rage and snarling hatred rolling off of her subjects, Princess Twilight remained calm, cool, and collected. This wasn't all that unusual for Ponyville. She just needed to figure out what had set them off this time.
My little ponies,
she tried to say, and she found that even her own ears couldn't pick up the sound of her voice. So, she tried to go louder.
Citizens of Ponyville!
Though louder, this still failed to elicit a response.
What's going on here?
Strangely, even the royal Canterlot voice was no match for the fury of 2 pony mobs in concert. They continued to snarl and scream obscenities at one another unabated. Well, this wouldn't do at all. Twilight leaned back and began to muster her might for one truly deafening roar. Which was about when the crowd seemed to notice the princess, who looked to be turning more purple than usual. The 2 camps began to simmer down, just as she opened her mouth.
Quiet!
The shockwave knocked down a few clouds out of the sky. The Castle of Friendship rattled from the blow, and the grass for miles around Ponyville flattened. Wood signs shattered, some ponies cowered before the sounds, while others struggled to stand against the tempest-like winds. It took several minutes for every pony to regain their footing, and a few would never get their hearing back. The princess blushed as she realized that she had gotten every pony's attention a bit more readily than she had planned. Still, now that she had it, she pressed forward with her advantage.
Now, could some pony please explain what's going on here?
It was surreal. In retrospect, to see Applejack and Pinkie Pie emerge from each of the mobs. They locked menacing, vengeful gazes on one another, never breaking eye contact, as they marched up to where Twilight stood.
We're in a big ol' pickle here, Sugar Cube,
said Applejack, still glowering at her pink friend.
You see, That new restaurant drinking hole when it Twilight?
Pinky shouted, her bloodshot eyes speaking to how long she had gone by this point without blinking.
What is soup?
The princess paused. Her lips pursed, and she tried to get her mind started again like a magic battery that just needed more juice.
Pardon?
Applejack shook her head.
Pinky, knock it off. I'm trying to explain here.
The orange mare coughed, clearing her throat.
Princess, there's a big ol' hoot and holler about town.
She said, glancing meaningfully towards the other mob of angry ponies.
All about just, what is soup? Is it a drink? Or is it just solid food, like what normal folks know it to be?
That last part got a snort and snarl out of Pinky.
Soup's not like a cupcake. Cupcakes are solid. Is so facto.
Twilight opened her mouth to respond, and then closed it. She shook her head a few times, then she pinched herself. When she didn't wake up, the princess sighed.
Please tell me this isn't what you're all fighting about. Hey, we're serious!
A shout that sounded perplexingly like Rainbow Dash came out of Applejack's crowd.
We want to know!
Somewhere in the opposite mob, Fluttershy could be seen, nervous of the crowd around her, hefting up a sign that read,
Soup is food, if that's okay. And...
Twilight pinched the bridge of her nose.
You all came to see me because...
Applejack shrugged.
You're the smartest pony I know. So, I figured... Tell us already so we can banish the non-believing soup eaters!
Pinky swept her arms dramatically, a flashlight lighting her from below to add greater emphasis to her performance. Twilight scowled up at Pinky. She carefully yanked the flashlight out of her friend's grip with magic and turned it off.
Non-believing soup eaters? Heretic, Sugar Cube.
Applejack nodded, sagely and seriously.
Gotta keep your youngin' safe from these filthy soup drinkers.
She said that like it was a curse.
I feel like this has escalated somewhat.
Twilight frowned. Then, as she scanned the crowd for any sign of sanity in all of this, she noted something.
Where's Rarity?
It was a bad sign. Twilight knew right away that every pony within earshot looked away as she said that. Worse still was the round of nonchalant whistling that went up and down the lines.
AJ?
Twilight's own scowl deepened.
Where's Rarity? Oh!
Applejack scrunched her nose.
We had to toss her in the dungeon. The town doesn't have a dungeon,
said Twilight.
Oh, of course not, silly.
Pinky waved down her friend's concern.
But we do have my party cave. Of course.
Applejack nodded affirmatively.
That's right. And once the cleansing is commenced, it's called a societal purge.
Pinky seethed.
You heathen!
Twilight held out a wing to forestall the violence that was surely about to spill over in a moment.
Hold on. Why did you lock Rarity up? She refused to commit!
Pinky stamped her hooves and spat. Again, Applejack nodded.
She's claiming to be neutral on the subject.
Pinky nodded as well.
Naturally! How can I trust some pony with a heart full of neutrality? Such a subject.
Twilight said, slowly and unamused.
As whether or not soup is a food or a beverage.
As both mobs faced each other down, and even Applejack and Pinkie Pie returning to exchanging heated looks right on her doorstep, Twilight Sparkle knew that a decision had to be reached out on this. A decision that would have far-reaching consequences. For herself, her friends, and for all of Equestria. Trixie lay, groaning in the middle of the library. Her belly was distended, and her eyes glazed over in pure peanut buttery ecstasy.
Trixie?
Starlight sighed, looking over the sight in pity.
I told you that was a bad idea. Worth it.
The show pony gurgled.
Can die happy.
Further discussion on the merits of gorging oneself on peanut butter crackers had to be tabled just then. The main doors to the castle swung open, and then slammed shut with an almost deafening roar, just beyond them. Princess Twilight trudged into the library room, her eyes stuck in a perpetual squint. It was like an eye twitch, but merged with a scowl. A squitch, as Pinky might call it. Starlight shifts her hooves, a bit unnerved by her teacher's face.
How'd it go, Starlight?
Twilight asked, her neck making a terrible cracking sound as she turned to speak.
Do you happen to know any powerful memory alteration spells?
Starlight's brow knitted together, and she looked away in shame, though perhaps almost to avoid eye contact, with a mad mare standing before her.
Yes, I do. Good! Excellent!
Twilight laughed and began walking back towards her bedroom.
Then, I just need you to whip something up to erase the concept of soup from the collective memory of all of Equestria.
Starlight's jaw unhinged, though not quite so much as her teacher.
Why would you want that?
And shouting down the nearby stairs came her answer.
Because even I think banishing a whole town to the moon would be an overreaction.
With that, Twilight returned to her quarters to sleep and to forget. This left Starlight staring wide-eyed into the ether, not quite sure to make of all of this. She was completely perplexed.
Hey, Starlight?
She sighed.
Yes, Trixie. If crackers are bread, and I put two together, would that make a peanut butter sandwich?
She sighed. Again.
Is it really that much of an overreaction, though?
Starlight wondered. You know, just for the funnies and for the laughs, if you want to, don't have to, comment down below and tell us if you think that soup is a drink or if it's a food. I'm looking forward to hearing the responses, for some damn reason. Now let's get on to them beautiful donators. Top donator, Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, Dospo, RuneScythe9852, CourierCruz CI, Delta Omega, Ryanny Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tallrascha, The Toilet Snake, SoulDragon, Starlight Glimmer, Squidey Boy, Gaggy, David D. Sanchez, Trey, Dak Britton, Joe Piercy, Alex F., Rainbow Dash, James Dalton, Teal K. Anderson, and TV Killer. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.